I've been getting quite a few comments asking about some settings within the Crew Motorfest menu, and since the number of new players will just continue to rise over the next few years, I figure it would be great to show you a few settings that can help make the game more enjoyable, help you drive faster, and just save you time in general. Alright, let's go! Alright, before I get into the video, if you're looking for any of my pro settings or tunes, you can go to militiagamingco.com, click on Motorfest Pro Settings. It'll take you to the Pro Settings app, which has my tunes, some of Acor's, Rhinos, and Goliaths as well. So check that out when you get a chance, or if you're looking for tunes for specific cars. Alright, let's get into it. This isn't a long video, but I do want to go over a few of these settings just to help you guys out a little bit. Number 1. Turn the replayers off. This is in the options menu. Go to game settings and scroll down to replayers. Having this one on does absolutely nothing for you but confuse the traffic in free roam. That can be super frustrating when you're attempting a feat or doing a summit activity. Turning them off just makes all of that ghost traffic disappear, and the only traffic you will see is actual traffic that you can collide with. Turn this one off. At number 2, you can turn the guidance off. I strongly recommend doing this. This is the one where you should actually work up to turning it off. Having the line on the ground is very detrimental to your development as a racer. I would try to slowly remove these options until it's either completely off altogether or you're playing with just the braking line. It will be a pain in the beginning, but you will absolutely thank me in the long run. This will enable you to develop your skills as a racer. It will enable your brain to download these tracks in the grand races and start to remember the paths as opposed to just constantly relying on that line. At number 3, I strongly recommend turning rewind off. This is useful for all kinds of situations. To do this, go to options and then difficulty. This one is probably off for a lot of you already, but for those of you out there who are wondering why when you try to reset your car, it only rewinds, this is the setting. You turn this off and you will be able to reset your car during events. Now don't worry, you still have the rewind ability in free roam scenarios, and that includes the feats for the summits. So don't worry too much. Turn this off, you're never going to turn it back on. At number 4, I strongly recommend turning motion blur off. This one is in the options menu. Go to accessibility, then display settings. This one is subjective, but I prefer not to have motion blur as it gets in the way of properly identifying corners, braking zones, and upcoming traffic. I prefer having a clear image all the time. The motion blur is there by default to add a bit more of an immersive experience, but I want to go faster, always. And at number 5, for the exact same reasons as the motion blur, turn the camera shake off as well. Now this one's in options, accessibility, display settings as well. It's right below motion blur. Again, for the same reason, turn it off. It helps you identify things. At number 6, there's a setting called convert holds to presses. I turn this setting on. This is in the options menu. Go to accessibility, tab over to motor. There's really no reason to have this off. Converting the holds to presses is just so much more convenient for scrapping parts and literally every other menu option that requires you to hold a button down. I hate holding buttons down. There's no reason to do that. Don't tap the button unless you actually want to select that menu option or scrap those parts. At number 7, steering dead zone to 0. Now this is one that I did not do for a long time. I played on default steering settings for a long time, and I'm so glad that I reduced this to 0. To do this, go to options, controls, and then scroll down to the steering section. This one's pretty simple. If you have stick drift happening with your controller and you don't want your cars to be steering off in different directions based on your stick drift, then increase the dead zone until that stick drift goes away. Otherwise, everyone else should have this on 0. It creates a more responsive car that reacts to your steering inputs closer to the time that you are actually steering, basically removing any extra delay that the game already has on top of the steering. Now, quick tip for these other steering settings, you can actually increase the responsiveness of the car just by simply increasing the steering sensitivity. That'll make your car feel a lot more twitchy and responsive. Play around with that when you get a chance. And finally, at number 8, the input remapping. I strongly recommend remapping one of your inputs, and that is the boat trim up. So if you go to input remapping, then go to controller and boat, you'll see that you can remap your trim up button. I would do either X or square depending on if you're on a Xbox controller or a PlayStation, or you can remap it to left trigger because, well, you're usually never braking in a boat. So you could just replace the brake with the trim option. Now, what does this allow you to do when in a boat race? This allows you to trim your boat at all times, even when you're cornering very sharply. It will instantly make you faster on boat events. Trimming is basically when you lean the boat backwards to make it a smaller area of the bottom of the boat touching the surface of the water, which leads to a faster pace because there's less friction. Now, the one thing that this can affect is your cornering ability. If you need to corner really, really sharply, you need to let go of the trim button so that the boat can dig in and make that corner. But 95% of the corners in these boat races can be made while full trimming, which again will decrease your time on those events. All right, just a quick video for you guys. Hopefully it helped out. I just wanted to give you some settings that I found to be helpful in making me drive a little bit faster and maybe navigate some menus a little bit faster. And ultimately, it's all about just making your life easier here in Motorfest. All right, if you have any questions about this, you can send me a DM on Instagram, Twitter, or Discord. I answer every single message that comes my way. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Trigger out.